Naomi's back hit the marble wall so hard the paintings rattled. "You don't get to walk away from me." Ji-hoon's voice was velvet wrapped around steel, his hand planted beside her head, caging her in. His cologne, dark and expensive, flooded her senses as his chest rose and fell inches from hers, controlled and relentless. "Watch me." Naomi shoved against his shoulder, but he didn't budge. 6 months of this. 6 months of him appearing wherever she was, invading her space, watching her like she might vanish if he blinked. His jaw tightened. "You're my wife." "On paper." She lifted her chin, refusing to flinch beneath those obsidian eyes that always saw too much. "That's all this is. A business arrangement. Your grandfather's dying wish. My ticket to... to what?" He leaned closer, his breath brushing her lips. "Financial security? A green card?" His mouth curved into something sharp. "Tell me, Naomi, what's your price?" The slap landed before she could stop herself. The sound cracked through the empty gallery hall of the Kim estate. Ji-hoon's head barely moved. A red mark bloomed across his cheekbone, but his expression didn't change. If anything, something darker flickered behind his eyes, something that made her stomach tighten. "Feel better?" he asked quietly. "Not even close." Her hands were shaking. She hated that he noticed. He caught her wrist before she could pull away, thumb pressing against her racing pulse. "Your heart's pounding," he murmured. "You're terrified of me." "I'm not. Or maybe." He pressed her palm against his chest, forcing her to feel his heartbeat, just as wild as hers. "You're terrified of this." Smash that subscribe button. If you're ready for a story about obsession, power, and a marriage that was never meant to feel like this. Because how it began is worse than you think. 6 months earlier, Naomi Carter still believed her life belonged to her. The knock came while she was in the kitchen of the small Inglewood house she'd grown up in. Not loud, not aggressive. 3 precise taps against the door, confident and patient. The kind of knock that assumed it would be answered. Her father sat at the table behind her, hunched over a stack of unopened envelopes. Final notices. Red ink. Words he pretended not to see. "Don't open it," he said quietly. Naomi wiped her hands on her shorts and opened the door anyway. 2 men stood on the porch. Black suits, no ties, calm eyes, shoes too clean for the neighborhood. They didn't smile. They didn't need to. "Naomi Carter?" the taller one asked. "Yes." "We're here about your father." Her chest tightened, but she stepped aside. Letting them in felt like surrender, though she didn't yet know to what. They didn't look around. They didn't comment on the photos lining the walls or the worn couch in the living room. Men like this didn't waste time pretending curiosity. "Mr. Carter," the shorter one said, sitting without invitation, "you've had extensions, grace periods, conversations." Her father stared at the table. The taller man continued, calm as a banker. "You currently owe 18.7 billion won." Naomi laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "That's not funny." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." She turned to her father. "What is he talking about?" Silence. "How does someone like you owe that kind of money?" she demanded. Her father's voice broke. "I borrowed. Then borrowed again. Tried to fix it." "From who?" The men exchanged a glance. "Chairman Kim," the taller one said. "Seoul." The name dropped heavy in the room. Naomi had heard it before, usually followed by lowered voices and quick subject changes. "The Korean boss?" she whispered. "He prefers chairman." Her father finally looked up. "Please, I just need more time." "You're out of time," the man replied. "The house goes first." Naomi stepped forward. "You can't take this house. This is everything." "There is another option," the shorter man said. Her father's head snapped up. No. Naomi ignored him. What option? A marriage. The word felt unreal. You're joking. To Chairman Kim's grandson, the man continued evenly. Ji-hoon Kim. Naomi stared. You want me to marry a stranger to clear a debt my father created? Yes. Her father stood abruptly. She's not for sale. The taller man didn't react. Your house is. Naomi's throat tightened. And if I say no? Then the house is seized within 48 hours, he said. Your father will be removed. Publicly. Her father whispered her name. How long? She asked quietly. 3 months, her father confessed. I thought I could fix it. Something in her broke. You let it. Get this far? I didn't mean for it to touch you. She laughed bitterly. It always does. The men rose. You don't need to decide now, the taller one said, but you will decide today. Naomi looked around the room, at the house that held every version of her life, at the man who raised her and was now drowning. What happens if I agree? She asked. You fly tonight, he replied. Private. Los Angeles to Seoul. And my father? Debt cleared. House untouched. Her father shook his head. Don't do this. She met his eyes. You already did. Naomi straightened. I'll do it. The men nodded once. Pack lightly, the taller one said. You leave in 3 hours. When the black car arrived, Naomi stepped outside without looking back. By the time the plane lifted into the night sky, Los Angeles shrinking beneath her, Naomi Carter was no longer just a daughter trying to save her father. She was collateral. The car smelled like leather and silence. Naomi sat in the back seat, hands folded in her lap, watching Los Angeles slide past the tinted windows like a life she'd already lived. The driver didn't speak. Neither did the man in the passenger seat. They moved with the quiet efficiency of people paid not to explain. Her phone buzzed once, a message from an unknown number. Pack light. No contact after departure. Your father is safe. She didn't reply. At the private terminal, everything happened fast. No lines, no questions. Her passport disappeared and returned with a thin stack of documents clipped to it. An NDA, marriage papers, a contract so thick it felt heavier than the suitcase in her hand. Read it on the flight, the attendant said, smiling too politely. The jet waited on the tarmac, sleek and white, its door already open. Naomi hesitated for half a second before climbing the steps. No one rushed her. No one needed to. Where else could she go? Inside, the cabin was dim and immaculate. Cream leather seats, soft lighting, a glass of water already waiting for her. It felt less like travel and more like intake. As the plane lifted, Naomi pressed her forehead to the window. The city shrank. The lights blurred. Somewhere below, her father slept in a house that no longer truly belonged to him. She exhaled shakily. A woman appeared from the front of the cabin, mid-40s, composed, dressed in charcoal gray. Ms. Carter, I'm Soo-jin. Naomi nodded. Am I supposed to call you something? Soo-jin smiled faintly. You may call me whatever makes you comfortable. Nothing did. They sat across from each other, the table between them filling with documents. Soo-jin slid them forward one by one. This is the marriage contract. These are the terms of residence. These outline expectations. Expectations? Naomi repeated. Yes. Like what I wear? She asked. Soo-jin tilted her head. That will be decided later. Naomi's jaw tightened. And if I don't agree? Soo-jin met her gaze steadily. You already have. The plane hummed around them. Naomi flipped through the pages. Clauses about privacy, about discretion, about appearances. There was nothing about love, nothing about choice. Where is he? Naomi asked suddenly. Soo-jin didn't look surprised. In Seoul. So I don't meet him before I marry him? No. Naomi laughed under her breath. Figures. She signed where she was told to sign. Each stroke of the pen felt like another door closing. Hours passed. The lights dimmed. Naomi dozed, dreaming of hallways with no exits and hands that never quite let go. When she woke, Seoul glimmered beneath the clouds. The Kim estate sat behind gates taller than anything she'd ever seen. Security scanned the car before it rolled through. The house itself was not a house, but a statement. Marble, glass, silence. Inside, staff lined the hall. They bowed. Not to her, to the space she occupied. A woman stepped forward, older, sharper-eyed. You will follow me. Naomi followed. She was shown a bedroom larger than her father's entire house. A closet already filled with clothes in her size. Shoes arranged by color. Jewelry locked behind glass. Dinner will be at 8, the woman said. You will wear what is laid out. And if I don't? Naomi asked. The woman paused. You will. She left. Naomi sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this maze of a house was the man she'd been sold to. She felt his presence without seeing him, like pressure in the air. At dinner, he didn't appear. Instead, the seat at the head of the table remained empty. She ate alone, watched by staff who pretended not to watch her. Later that night, she wandered the hallways. Portraits lined the walls. Men. Power. History. Then, halfway down a quiet corridor, she noticed something strange. 3 doors. Identical. Locked. No nameplates. No photos. A soft voice spoke behind her. Those rooms are not used. Naomi turned. Soo-jin stood there, hands folded. What were they? Naomi asked. Soo-jin hesitated. Naomi's pulse quickened. Who lived here before me? Soo-jin's eyes softened, just slightly. You should rest. Tell me. A beat. Then quietly, Soo-jin said, You are his 4th wife. The words echoed in the empty hall. Naomi swallowed. She looked at the locked doors again, a chill crawling up her spine. And somewhere deeper in the estate, a door opened. Naomi met Ji-hoon Kim at exactly 7 a.m. She knew the time because the room was still blue with early light, the kind that made everything feel unfinished. She was standing at the window barefoot when she felt it. That pressure again. The sense that someone had entered the space without making a sound. You're awake. His voice came from behind her, calm, certain. She turned slowly. Ji-hoon stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets, dressed in black like the night had decided to take human form. He was taller than she expected, broader. His face was sharp in a way that suggested precision rather than cruelty, but his eyes were the problem. Dark, unblinking, already familiar with her. You don't knock? She asked. This is my house. So I'm property now? A corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. You were property before you arrived. The words landed without apology. Naomi crossed her arms. Then why am I here? Why not keep me in a room like the others? His gaze sharpened. The others? She watched his reaction closely. A flicker. Gone as quickly as it appeared. You're curious, he said. I'm not stupid. He stepped closer. Not invading her space yet. Measuring it. Curiosity is dangerous here. So is silence. He studied her the way one studies a problem they intend to solve, not destroy. You will learn quickly, he said, that I do not enjoy being challenged. Naomi met his gaze. You'll learn quickly that I don't enjoy being owned. Silence stretched between them, thick and electric. Then he surprised her. Good, he said. She blinked. Good? I didn't marry a ghost. His eyes moved over her face, lingering too long. I married a woman. Her stomach twisted at the word married. You married a solution. He didn't deny it. Instead, he gestured toward the door. Walk with me. She hesitated. Where? Everywhere you're allowed to go. The halls were wide and quiet. Staff bowed as they passed, eyes lowered. Naomi noticed how their bodies subtly angled toward him, how their movements adjusted to his presence like gravity. You already know everything about me, don't you? She asked. Yes. What I studied, where I worked, who I dated. Yes. What I eat? He glanced at her. 2. Much sugar when you're anxious. Her steps faltered. That's invasive. That's attentive. They reached a glass corridor overlooking a courtyard. He stopped there, sunlight catching in his hair. You will not leave the estate alone, he said calmly. You will not speak to the press. You will not contact your father without clearance. And if I don't? She asked. His eyes darkened. Then I intervene. Is that what you call control? I call it protection. She laughed, humorless. From who? You? His gaze held hers. From me too. That answer unsettled her more than any threat. The rest of the day unfolded like a test she hadn't agreed to take. She was shown rooms, given schedules, introduced to staff who smiled without warmth. Everywhere she went, she felt it. Eyes, attention, anticipation. By evening, she needed air. She slipped into the garden just as the sun dipped low. The silence there felt almost real. She closed her eyes, breathing in jasmine and something metallic beneath it. Running already? She spun around. Ji-hoon stood at the edge of the path, jacket gone, sleeves rolled. Less formal, more dangerous. I needed space, she said. Space is a privilege, he replied. She stepped closer. You don't understand that word. He tilted his head. Teach me. The invitation caught her off guard. You don't want to learn, she said. You want compliance. He took another step, close enough now that she could smell him. Dark. Clean. Unavoidable. I want certainty, he said quietly. I want to know where you are, what you're thinking, what you're afraid of. And if I don't give you that, then I'll take it. Her pulse jumped. That's obsession. His eyes didn't leave her face. Isn't that what love becomes when it's honest? She shoved past him, heart racing. You're not normal. He watched her. Retreat. Neither are you. That night she dreamed of locked doors and hands that never quite touched her. She woke to the sound of movement. Her door was open. She sat up, breath shallow. Nothing there. Later at breakfast, Ji-hoon wasn't present, but her plate was arranged exactly the way she preferred. Fruit cut the way she liked it. Coffee sweetened just enough. Her skin prickled. You didn't tell them how I take my coffee, she said when she finally saw Soo-jin. Soo-jin hesitated. No. That afternoon, Naomi tried something reckless. She took a different corridor back to her room, one she hadn't walked before. Halfway down, she felt it again. That pressure. She turned sharply. No one. She kept walking. Faster. When she reached her door, there was a folded note on the floor. You shouldn't test the cameras yet. Her hands went cold. She looked up slowly. A lens blinked red above her door. Naomi stepped inside, locking it behind her. Heart hammering. For the first time since arriving in Korea, the truth settled fully in her chest. Ji-hoon didn't just watch her when he was present. He watched her always. And she was never truly alone. The wedding happened without romance and without witnesses who mattered. No crowd, no music, no questions about whether she wanted this. Naomi stood beside Ji-hoon in a minimalist ceremonial hall carved from stone and glass. Everything was white. Walls, floor, flowers. It felt less like a union and more like a sterilized transaction. The officiant spoke in Korean. Naomi didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Formal. Final. Ji-hoon never looked at her while the vows were read. When it was her turn to speak, Soo-jin leaned close and whispered, "Say yes." Naomi did. The ring slid onto her finger, heavy and cold. A seal. After, there was no kiss. Just Ji-hoon's hand closing around her wrist, firm enough to remind her she was now attached to him whether she liked it or not. From that day, the house changed. Not visibly. The staff still bowed. Meals still arrived on time. The halls were still silent. But the air felt closer, tighter, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Ji-hoon began appearing everywhere. Not loudly, not suddenly, just there. In the mornings, when she stepped into the kitchen, he was already seated with his coffee, eyes lifting the moment she entered. In the afternoons, when she read in the garden, he stood at the edge of the path pretending to be on his phone. At night, when she wandered the halls to calm her thoughts, she felt his presence before she saw him. "You don't need to follow me," she said one evening, stopping abruptly in a corridor. He halted behind her. "I wasn't following. You always know where I am. That's my responsibility. I'm not a child. You're my wife." She turned to face him, anger sharp and immediate. "On paper." His gaze dropped. To her mouth, then back to her eyes. "Paper still cuts." The words unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. He didn't touch her often. That was the strange part. No wandering hands. No forced intimacy. Instead, it was the closeness. The way he stood too near. The way his attention wrapped around her like invisible wire. She started changing routes through the house just to see if he would notice. He always did. "You skipped lunch," he said casually one afternoon as she passed him in the hall. "I wasn't hungry." "You were at noon," he replied. "You get headaches when you don't eat." Her chest tightened. "Stop tracking me." He didn't look offended. "Stop disappearing. I'm allowed to breathe. You're allowed to be safe." "You keep saying that like I'm in danger." His eyes darkened. "You are." "From what?" He held her gaze for a long moment. "From leaving." That night she tried to lock her bedroom door. It didn't work. The lock clicked uselessly under her hand. She exhaled sharply, pulse racing, and turned around. Ji-hoon leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "You disabled the lock," she said. "Yes." "Why?" "So you don't isolate yourself." Her voice shook. "That's control. That's care." She laughed bitterly. "Your definitions are twisted." He stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to retreat. She didn't. "Why do you need to know where I am every second?" she demanded. "Why does it bother you so much if I walk somewhere you didn't expect?" His jaw tightened. "Because the moment I don't know where you are—" "What?" He stopped himself. "Finish that sentence," she pushed. His voice dropped. "Because the moment I don't know, I imagine you gone. And I don't survive that." Something in his tone made her stomach drop. "You're not protecting me," she said, softly. "You're protecting yourself." His eyes flickered. The next weeks blurred into a constant test of boundaries. She left rooms abruptly. He followed. She asked for space. He hovered. She asked questions about the house. He redirected. "You don't need to know everything," he told her one night over dinner. "I'm your wife," she shot back. "Or does that only apply when it benefits you?" His lips pressed together. "You don't need to know about the past." That word stuck. "The past," she repeated. "Like your other wives?" Silence slammed down between them. He didn't deny it. Her pulse spiked. "How many?" His gaze hardened. "Enough." "They left," she said slowly. "Yes." "Why?" His fingers tightened around his glass. "They couldn't adapt." "To what?" she demanded. "Being watched?" Being caged? They were given everything. So am I. He leaned forward. And yet you resist. Because I'm not furniture. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You think you're different? He asked quietly. She didn't back down. I know I am. The argument followed her down the hall, voices low but sharp. You don't get to rewrite me, he said. You don't get to own me, she fired back. They reached the gallery hall without realizing it, surrounded by silent art and echoing marble. That was when she tried to walk away. Naomi turned, taking 2 steps before his hand slammed beside her head, trapping her against the wall. You don't get to walk away from me. Her back hit the marble so hard the paintings rattled. Everything after that blurred into heat and fury and restraint, snapping thread by thread. Watch me, she spat, shoving his shoulder. He didn't move. You're my wife. On paper. To what? He demanded. What's your price? The slap rang through the hall. The silence afterward felt alive. Ji-hoon barely reacted, red blooming on his cheek, his expression unreadable, eyes darkening in a way that made her breath hitch. Feel better? He asked. Not even close. He caught her wrist, pressed her palm to his chest, forcing her to feel his racing heart. You're terrified of me, he murmured. I'm not. Or maybe, he said softly. You're terrified of this. Something cracked open inside her then. Not fear. Recognition. She yanked her hand free. I will not disappear for you. His voice was rough. None of them said that. Her blood ran cold. None of who? He didn't answer. Later that night, unable to sleep, Naomi wandered again. This time she went back to the locked corridor. 3 doors. She stood before the first, heart pounding, and noticed something she hadn't before. Scratches near the handle. Faint. Desperate. On the floor beneath the 3rd door lay a small forgotten object. A wedding band. Naomi picked it up, fingers trembling. 3 wives. And none of them had stayed. She closed her hand around the ring as the truth settled heavily in her chest. She wasn't trapped in a marriage. She was trapped in a pattern. And unless she broke it, she would be the next woman who vanished from these halls. Subscribe now, because what you're about to hear changes everything. This isn't a love story. It's a pattern. And Naomi is about to discover why 3 women escaped a man powerful enough to keep anyone trapped. Naomi didn't sleep. The wedding band sat heavy in her palm as she paced the length of her room, the metal warm now from her skin. She turned it over and over, examining the faint engraving on the inside. No name, just a date. She swallowed. By morning the house felt different. Not quieter. Not louder. Sharper. As if it were waiting to see what she would do with what she knew. At breakfast, Ji-hoon was already seated. He didn't look up when she entered, but the cup in his hand paused for half a second. He knew. Somehow, he always knew. She slid into the chair across from him and placed the ring on the table between them. The sound it made was soft. Final. Ji-hoon's eyes lifted slowly. His gaze dropped to the ring, then returned to her face. Where did you find that? He asked. In the hallway, she replied. Outside the rooms you said weren't used. Silence stretched. Not defensive, calculating. You shouldn't touch things that don't belong to you, he said. Her laugh was cold. Funny. That's exactly how they treated me. Something in his expression tightened. Tell me about them, she said. All of them. They're irrelevant. They're my future if you don't, she shot back. He leaned back in his chair, studying her like a chessboard that had just shifted. You think you understand something because you found a ring? I think, she said evenly, that 3 women didn't just wake up one day and abandon a life like this for no reason. He stood. The movement was abrupt enough to make the staff freeze in place. Clear the room, he said calmly. They vanished within seconds. Ji-hoon turned back to Naomi. You want the truth? Yes. You won't like it. She held his gaze. Try me. He gestured toward the chair beside him. Sit. She didn't move. A beat passed. Then he nodded once. Fine. He walked to the window, staring out at the manicured grounds like they were something he owned and didn't trust. The first wife, he said, thought love meant freedom. Naomi crossed her arms. She was quiet, he continued. Gentle. She liked the idea of being taken care of, until she realized I didn't mean financially. Naomi's chest tightened. What did you mean? I wanted to know her, he said. Completely. Where she was, who she spoke to, what she thought when she went silent. So you watched her? Yes. Controlled her. I protected her. Naomi shook her head. She left. She ran, he corrected. In the middle of the night. Left everything behind. And you let her? His jaw tightened. I learned. Naomi's stomach dropped. Learned what? That love requires leverage. She inhaled slowly. And the second? Ji-hoon's gaze darkened. The second believed in compromise. Naomi waited. She tried to negotiate boundaries, he said. Rules, space, privacy. His mouth twisted. As if those things exist when you commit to someone. What happened to her? Naomi asked quietly. She stayed longer, he admitted, because she thought endurance was strength. And when she couldn't endure anymore, she broke. Naomi felt a chill slide down her spine. Did you break her? Ji-hoon turned sharply. I never touched them, against their will. That's not what I asked. His silence was answer enough. And the third? Naomi pressed. His voice lowered. The third tried to disappear while standing right beside me. Naomi frowned. What does that mean? She stopped reacting, he said. Stopped resisting. Stopped feeling. His eyes hardened. She became empty. And you couldn't stand that. No. So she left too. Yes. Naomi exhaled shakily. Do you hear yourself? I hear honesty, he said. They all wanted parts of me without the whole. No, Naomi snapped. They wanted to breathe. He stepped closer. And you? She didn't retreat. I want autonomy. His eyes searched her face. You think you can teach me that? I think, she said carefully, that you don't know how to love without consuming. The words hit. Hard. Ji-hoon's expression didn't explode. It cracked. That's not love, she continued softer now. That's fear. His voice dropped. You think I don't know that? Then why repeat it? Because every time someone leaves, he said quietly, I become more certain the next one won't. Naomi's heart ached despite herself. That's not certainty, she said. That's punishment. He stared at her for a long moment. You're different, he said finally. She laughed bitterly. They probably thought so too. They never stood up to me, he said. Not like this. And if I do? She asked. If I refuse to disappear? His jaw flexed. Then you will force me to change. That's not my job, she said. No, he agreed. It's mine. She leaned forward. Then listen carefully. She placed the ring back on the table. I am not your fourth attempt at control. I am not here to survive you. I will not be watched into silence, followed into obedience, or loved into submission. His gaze burned into hers. If you want me, she said steadily, you will learn space. You will learn restraint. And you will learn that love does not mean possession. And if I can't? He asked quietly. She stood. Then I leave, she said. And this time, you'll know exactly why. Silence swallowed the room. Ji-hoon didn't stop her as she walked away. But that night, for the first time since she arrived, Naomi slept with her door unlocked, and Ji-hoon did not follow. Not once. The first rule Naomi set was silence. Not the kind Ji-hoon was used to. Not strategic quiet or calculated distance. This was different. This was absence. She stopped reacting. She didn't argue when he entered a room. Didn't glance up when he passed. Didn't acknowledge the way his presence bent the air around her like pressure. She existed without orbiting him. It unsettled him immediately. At breakfast, he watched her from across the table, waiting for her to speak. She ate calmly, methodically, as if he weren't there at all. "You're avoiding me," he said finally. "I'm breathing," she replied without looking up. "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how it works now." He pushed his chair back and stood. "You don't get to change the terms." She met his gaze for the first time that day. "I already did." The second rule came that afternoon. She requested access, not permission. Access. "To leave the estate," she said, standing in his office, hands steady at her sides. "With or without you." His expression darkened. "Absolutely not." "Then we're done," she said calmly. "You don't mean that." "I do." Silence fell between them, heavy and volatile. "You are safest here," he said finally. "I am safest when I choose where I stand," she replied. He stared at her like she'd spoken a language he was only beginning to understand. "You want freedom," he said slowly. "But freedom invites loss." "No," she corrected. "Control invites resentment, and resentment always leaves." The words cut deeper than she intended. Ji-hoon looked away first. That evening, she walked out of the gates alone. No guard stopped her. No car followed. She felt it immediately, the space opening around her like oxygen. The city beyond the estate buzzed, imperfect and alive. She walked for hours, letting her thoughts stretch, letting herself remember who she was before she became someone's answer to a problem. When she returned, Ji-hoon was waiting in the courtyard. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her, didn't raise his voice. "You came back," he said quietly. "I chose to," she replied. The third rule came that night. "Accountability," she said, standing at the foot of the bed he had never once shared with her. "You don't get to explain your behavior away as love." "What do you want me to say?" he asked. "The truth," she said, "even when it makes you look small." His jaw tightened. "Power doesn't survive smallness." "Then maybe that's the problem." He exhaled slowly. "When I was a child," he said, voice low, "everything I loved was taken. People left. People died. Control was the only thing that stayed." Naomi listened, didn't interrupt. "So I learned," he continued, "that if I held on hard enough, nothing could disappear." "And did it work?" she asked gently. His silence answered. The fourth rule was the hardest. "Space," she said, "physical and emotional. When I walk away, you let me. And if you don't come back, then you learn to survive that." He looked at her then, really looked, not as an asset, not as a solution, but as a risk. "You're asking me to unlearn myself," he said. "No," she replied softly. "I'm asking you to grow." The breaking point came days later. She packed a small bag and left it by the door. Ji-hoon noticed immediately. "You're leaving," he said. "Yes." "For how long?" She met his eyes. "That depends on you." His control screamed at him. She saw it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his fingers curled as if grasping for something invisible. "Don't do this," he said quietly. "This," she replied, "is the only way." She walked past him. He didn't stop her, didn't follow, didn't send a car. Hours passed, then a night, then morning. Naomi stayed in a small hotel overlooking the river, phone silent, heart pounding with every hour that passed without his shadow. On the second night, her phone buzzed. "I'm trying." 3 words. No commands, no surveillance, no demand for return. She didn't respond. On the third night, another message. I don't know who I am without watching you, but I want to learn. Something loosened in her chest. She returned at dawn. Ji-hoon was in the courtyard again, standing exactly where she'd left him days earlier. He looked different, not weaker, stripped. I didn't follow, he said. I wanted to. I know. I didn't check the cameras. I know. I hated every second. She stepped closer. And yet, he said, voice rough, you came back. Because you let me leave. He swallowed. I don't want to lose you. Then don't cage me. A long pause. Ji-hoon stepped back. One step, then another. He opened the space between them deliberately, visibly. I'm here, he said, but I won't reach. For the first time, Naomi didn't feel trapped standing beside him. She felt chosen. And somewhere deep inside Ji-hoon, obsession loosened its grip. Not gone, but no longer in control. Naomi didn't confront her father immediately. She needed to understand who she was now before facing who he had turned her into. Fahai's call came from him first. Naomi, he said, voice heavy with relief. They said everything is settled. The house, it's safe. I don't know how to thank you. She closed her eyes. I know, she replied quietly. That's the problem. There was a pause. When are you coming home? Home. The word felt unfamiliar. I don't know yet, she said. But when I do, we need to talk. He hesitated. You sound different. I am. She ended the call before he could say more. That night, she walked the estate alone. Not watched, not followed. The cameras were still there, but something had shifted. They no longer felt like eyes. They felt like remnants of a life that no longer fit. Ji-hoon found her by the koi pond. He stopped several feet away. Space. She noticed. You didn't have to wait, she said. I wanted to, he replied. She studied him. He looked the same, powerful and composed, but the edge was dulled, not weakened, redirected. I spoke to my father, she said. His jaw tightened. Does he regret it? He regrets losing his house, she answered honestly. Not selling me. Ji-hoon absorbed that quietly. I was never meant to be a lesson, she continued, but I won't be a sacrifice again either. He nodded. I won't ask you to be. She stepped closer, not because he pulled her, because she chose to. This marriage, she said, only survives if it's rebuilt. How? He asked. Transparency, she said. No locked rooms, no erased histories. He hesitated. She waited. Then he spoke. The rooms will be opened. And the cameras? They stay, he said carefully. But not for you. She arched a brow. They're for threats, he clarified. Not control. She studied his face, searching for the lie. Found none. And me? He asked quietly. What am I to you now? Naomi didn't answer immediately. She thought of Los Angeles, of the door she opened, of the plane that took her away, of the woman who arrived here afraid and furious and owned. Then she looked at him. You're a man learning how not to disappear inside power, she said. And I'm not here to save you. He nodded. Good. She took his hand. Not tightly, not possessively. Just enough. The next morning, the locked corridor stood open. 3 rooms. Cleaned, stripped, honest. No ghosts. Just evidence. Naomi stood in the doorway and breathed. Later, she packed her own suitcase. Not to leave forever. To remind herself she could. Ji-hoon watched from the hall. You're staying? He asked. For now, she said. Because I want to. Not because I owe anyone. He stepped aside to let her pass. The house adjusted. So did he. Naomi was no longer collateral. She was choice. And Ji-hoon Kim learned finally that love did not mean reaching. It meant letting go. Even when it terrified him. Like, subscribe, and comment if you felt that shift, because this wasn't the end. It was the first time power changed hands. And if you think obsession disappears this easily, you haven't been paying attention. Next story drops soon. Stay ready.